parents lied that Grandma was hospitalized to keep me from joining the family cruise. When they came back, have you ever been betrayed by the ones you trusted most? What if I told you that my own family used my love for my grandmother to manipulate me into sacrificing everything for them? Stay with me because what happened next will blow your mind. I never expected to find the truth buried beneath their lies. But when I did, it changed my life forever. This is a story you don't want to miss. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mom's voice on the phone cracked with emotion, but it was a kind of emotion I'd never heard from her before. It was just too much. Sweetheart, Grandma's not doing well at all. She's in the hospital, and we really need you here right now. My stomach dropped as she spoke. I had been counting down the days to our big family cruise, our first one in years. I'd packed, arranged time off work, and even bought new clothes. This trip was supposed to be my escape, a chance to bond with family and finally relax. But here she was, asking me to drop everything for Grandma. Without thinking, I immediately agreed, my voice steady, even though inside I was a mess. Of course, I'll stay. The cruise isn't important if Grandma needs help. I'll be there. What I didn't know then was that those words would haunt me later, when I found out how badly I had been played. As I started driving to the hospital, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Chloe, my younger sister. I thought it was just an update about the cruise or something to keep me in the loop while I headed to the hospital. But when I opened the message, my heart nearly stopped. There it was, an image of my entire family on the deck of a cruise ship. Champagne glasses raised in celebration. Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family, Chloe had written in the caption. My hands shook as I pulled the car over to the side of the road. My mind raced. What was going on? Why was my family on a cruise? How could they lie to me like this? They had used Grandma, my beloved Grandma, as an excuse to keep me out of the family vacation. The anger and confusion flooded my body like ice water. I tried calling my mom, but it went straight to voicemail. I called Chloe, and again, nothing. It was like they had planned this, cutting me off without a second thought. I couldn't believe it. They had deliberately left me out, and they hadn't even bothered to tell me the truth. Not only had they excluded me, but they'd used my love for Grandma to manipulate me. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. The lies, the deceit. It was too much to handle. I couldn't bring myself to go to the hospital anymore, not after what I had just seen. So I drove straight to Grandma's house. Tears blurred my vision as I rushed there, my heart heavy with betrayal. When I arrived, I knocked on the door, unsure of what to expect. And there she was, Grandma, standing in the doorway, looking perfectly healthy, not a single sign of the illness my family had claimed. She looked at me, confused, as I stood there, eyes red and swollen. Tara, what's wrong, sweetheart? She asked, pulling me into a warm embrace. The smell of her lavender perfume immediately made my chest tighten. How could they do this to me? How could they make me feel like I was going crazy? Like I was imagining things? We sat together in her cozy living room, and the truth came pouring out. I told her everything. The cruise, the lies, the social media posts, the shocking betrayal. Grandma listened quietly, her face growing darker with each word. She shook her head slowly, disappointment evident in her eyes. I don't understand why they would do this to you, Tara. Why would they lie like this? Her voice trembled with the weight of what I had just revealed. But as much as I wanted to scream, I held it together for her. The woman who had been my rock, who had always treated me with love and respect, was now caught up in the middle of this mess, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. That was when Grandma dropped the bombshell. Your mother called me last week, she said, her voice tight with anger. She asked me to play along, pretend I was in the hospital. I refused. I had no idea they'd actually go through with this. My chest tightened as I listened. Grandma had been asked to lie to me, to manipulate me for the sake of their own plans. I had always known that my parents had their favorites, but this was different. This wasn't just about favoring Chloe over me, it was about using me. taking advantage of my good nature to get what they wanted. Grandma paused for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was full of a wisdom I had always admired. Tara, sometimes people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? I stared at her, trying to process the weight of her words. The hurt and confusion I had been feeling began to shift into something else, something sharper. I had been blind to the way my family treated me for so long, but now I had the truth, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos Chloe had posted. My heart sank as I saw more pictures my parents lounging by the pool, Chloe in the sundress I had helped her pick out, everyone laughing and having a great time. But there, on my mom's neck, was the necklace I had always known was meant to be mine. It was the diamond necklace Grandma had given her, intended to be passed down to both daughters on their 30th birthdays. Chloe had gotten it already, even though I was the older one. The injustice of it all hit me like a punch in the stomach. Even the most sentimental of things had been taken from me, and I wasn't even part of the plan. Grandma didn't need to say anything more. She knew, I knew, that this wasn't just about a family vacation. This was about years of manipulation, favoritism, and betrayal, and I had had enough. I couldn't stop shaking as I sat on Grandma's couch, the words she had just spoken still echoing in my head. "Your mother called me last week," she said, her voice tight with anger. "She asked me to play along, pretend I was in the hospital. I refused. I had no idea they'd actually go through with this. I had always known my family was a little off, but this was something else." The anger that had been brewing inside me started to rise again, swirling and twisting in my chest. How could they do this to me? How could they lie about something so serious? Something I had been so willing to drop everything for. And for what? A stupid cruise? I had always prided myself on being the responsible one, the one who could be counted on, the one who always did the right thing. But now I was the fool. My family had taken my love, my loyalty, my time, and used it to serve their own selfish desires. I felt sick. As I sat there with Grandma, the gravity of the situation settled deeper in my bones. She had known the truth all along. She had seen the favoritism, the manipulation. She had seen the way my parents treated Chloe like a golden child, showering her with everything while I was left to fend for myself. I could feel the sting of those memories creeping back every time they picked Chloe over me, every time I had to take out loans for college while Chloe got her tuition paid without a second thought. It wasn't just the money. It was the emotional toll. I had always felt like I wasn't good enough, that no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough to make them proud. But now, with the truth laid bare before me, it was hard to ignore the fact that they had never really cared. They had always used me for their own benefit, and I had been blind to it for far too long. I wiped my eyes, trying to clear away the tears that had started to blur my vision. I had always been the dependable one, the one who showed up when my family needed me. I'd spent years helping Grandma with groceries, taking her to doctor's appointments, spending afternoons just sitting with her, keeping her company. All the while, Chloe had rarely visited unless she needed something, usually money. And yet, it was Chloe who always got the attention, the praise. It had always been like that. But now, I was seeing it for what it was, a pattern of favoritism, a calculated manipulation. And it wasn't just about the cruise. It was about everything. They had used me, manipulated my love for my grandmother, and made me feel like an outsider in my own family. Grandma reached over and grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Tara, sometimes people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it," she said softly. I could see the determination in her eyes, the resolve that had always been a part of her, even as she had grown older. "The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge?" Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. What was I going to do? What could I do? For so long I had tried to please them. I had tried to be the daughter they wanted me to be, the one who did everything right, the one who never asked for anything in return. But now I was done. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. I wasn't going to let them use me like that. And I sure as hell wasn't going to sit by while they tried to destroy my relationship with Grandma, the one person who had always treated me with love and respect. I took a deep breath and looked at Grandma, my heart heavy with the weight of everything I had just learned. "I can't believe they did this," I whispered. "I can't believe they used Grandma to get me out of the picture. And for what? A damn vacation?" Grandma's face darkened with disappointment, and I could see the years of hurt in her eyes. She had always hoped that my parents would change, that they would come to their senses and realize how they were treating me. But this was too much. This was a betrayal beyond anything I could have imagined. As I sat there trying to process everything, my phone buzzed again. I looked down, expecting to see another message from Chloe or my mom, but instead, it was a group text from my cousin, Nah. She had no idea I had been excluded from the cruise. She had meant to send vacation photos to the entire family, but she didn't know I wasn't supposed to see them. My heart sank as I scrolled through the images. There was Chloe in a sundress I had helped her pick out, my parents lounging by the pool with cocktails in hand, and the entire family gathered for a formal dinner, laughing and enjoying themselves. But what caught my eye was the photo of my mom, wearing the diamond necklace Grandma had given her. The necklace was meant to be passed down to both of her daughters on their 30th birthdays. But, of course, Chloe had already gotten it, and I hadn't. The injustice of it all hit me like a wave, knocking the breath out of me. I showed Grandma the picture, my voice shaking with anger. "She gave it to Chloe already, didn't she? Even though I'm the older one, even though we were supposed to share it." Grandma didn't say anything at first. She just stared at the photo, her expression hardening. "That necklace has been in our family for 3 generations, she said quietly, her voice tight with anger. "Your great-grandmother split her jewelry between her daughters equally. That's why I gave it to your mother with specific instructions. But now I see what they've done." I could see the disappointment in her eyes, but there was something else there too. Something I hadn't noticed before. A quiet determination, a fierce protectiveness. And then Grandma dropped the bombshell. "The cruise wasn't paid for with your parents' money," she said, her voice thick with emotion. 2 months ago, I gave them $15,000 to plan a family vacation, explicitly stating it was for all of us. But instead, they used your portion to upgrade their cabins and book extra excursions. They used your money, Tara. They've been taking from you for years, and I can't stand it anymore. My heart pounded in my chest as the truth hit me like a punch. I had been the one who worked hard to earn my money, to pay for my share of the cruise, but they had stolen it from me, used my love for them against me. And it wasn't just about the cruise. It was about everything. The years of lies, the years of favoritism, the years of manipulation. I looked at Grandma, my mind reeling with everything she had just told me. She had been watching this happen for years, quietly hoping that my parents would come to their senses. But now, there was no denying it. The truth was out, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I wasn't going to be the person who always let things go, who always turned the other cheek. This time, I was going to take a stand. I was going to show them that their actions had consequences. Grandma handed me a thick manila envelope, the weight of it heavy in my hands. "I've been keeping records," she said quietly. "Every time they favored Chloe, every time they took advantage of your kindness, every penny they've spent differently between you two." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope, pulling out bank statements, photos, emails, and handwritten notes. The truth was laid bare in black and white. The pattern of favoritism was not just in my head. It had been calculated, consistent, and deliberate. And it was time for me to stop pretending I didn't see it. I looked at Grandma, my mind made up. "I'm done letting them walk all over me," I said quietly. "I'm done being the responsible one who gets nothing in return." Grandma nodded, her eyes filled with pride. "Good! Now let's make sure they never hurt you again." Now, let me ask you this, what would you do? If you found out your own family had been hiding something huge from you for years, do you think I should confront them? Or should I take the high road and walk away? Comment below with your thoughts, 1 for confrontation, 2 for walking away. Let's see where you stand. The weight of the envelope in my hands felt like 100 pounds as I stared at the records Grandma had given me. I had barely been able to process what she had told me my parents, the people I'd always trusted, had taken advantage of me for years, used my love and loyalty as nothing more than a tool to get what they wanted. They had manipulated me, deceived me, and now the truth was finally out in the open. The papers in front of me didn't just confirm my suspicions, they shattered the illusion I had been holding on to for so long. I had always believed that I was part of a loving, close-knit family, but now I saw things for what they really were. It was all a facade, and I had been living in it. I flipped through the bank statements, each one like a punch to the gut. The numbers were staggering, the evidence undeniable. My parents had been siphoning money from my trust fund for years, using it for things I had never even known about, things that weren't supposed to be theirs to take. Money meant for my future, for my security, had been spent on luxuries for Chloe, on dance lessons, private school tuition, and even her wedding. As I read through the pages, my hands began to shake, but I couldn't stop. I had to keep going. I had to see everything they had done. And there it was, in black and white. Over $500,000 had been taken from me, while I worked myself to the bone just to put myself through college, just to make sure I had enough to survive. Grandma's words echoed in my head, sharp and clear. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it. She was right. I had spent years looking the other way, hoping that things would get better, that my parents would change, that they would see me for who I really was. But now I saw them for who they really were: selfish, manipulative, and willing to do anything to get what they wanted, regardless of who they hurt along the way. They had used me, they had lied to me, and they had stolen from me. But worst of all, they had done it all without a second thought. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the documents scattered across the table. The room felt suddenly small, suffocating. I had always tried to be the good daughter, the one who was reliable, the one who always did what was asked of her. I had put everyone else's needs before my own, always making sure my family was taken care of, even when it meant sacrificing my own happiness. I had done everything right, and for what? For them to lie to me, to take advantage of me? No, not anymore. I wasn't going to let them control me, not when I had the power to take my life back. But what could I do with this information? What would it change? I knew my parents would deny everything, claim it was for my own good, that they were just trying to protect me from having too much too soon. They would turn it all around, make me the villain, make me out to be the one who was ungrateful. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it this time. I was done being their pawn. I was done being the one who always had to take a step back, to put my own needs on hold for the sake of the family. It was my turn now. I looked at Grandma, her face soft but serious as she watched me. "You've got the proof now, Tara. It's up to you what you do with it." Her voice was steady, calm, but I could hear the strength behind it. She had known about all of this long before I had. She had watched my parents manipulate me, watched them play their games, and she had kept quiet, hoping things would change. But they hadn't, and now we had the evidence we needed to make sure they would never hurt me again. I stood up, pacing around the room as my mind raced. I had so many choices ahead of me. I could confront my parents, expose them for what they had done, but that would be messy. It would hurt everyone, even Chloe, even though she didn't deserve it. Or I could take a quieter route, gather more evidence, let them continue to dig themselves deeper until they had no way out. I didn't know which path would be best, but I did know one thing. I wasn't going to just sit back and let them get away with it anymore. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. The phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking my thoughts. I glanced down at the screen and saw that it was a message from Chloe. My heart skipped a beat. She had no idea I knew what was going on. She was still under the illusion that everything was fine, that I had just been left behind because of Grandma's supposed illness. The message was short, simple. Mom says, "You're spreading lies about us. Why can't you just be happy for once instead of ruining everything?" My stomach turned. There it was, the same manipulation, the same attempt to turn everything around on me. They had done this before, tried to make me feel like the problem, like I was the one who was causing all the drama. But I wasn't going to fall for it this time. I wasn't going to let them make me feel guilty for something I didn't do. I wasn't going to let them twist the narrative to make me the villain. This was about them, not me. I took a deep breath, letting the anger simmer just beneath the surface. I wasn't going to let it consume me. I was going to stay calm, stay focused. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I responded to Chloe's message, my fingers shaking as I typed. Funny how being lied to about Grandma being sick so you guys could exclude me from the cruise somehow makes me the problem. Even funnier how the cruise was paid for with money that was meant for me. I hit send before I could second guess myself. I knew it was risky. I knew it might escalate things, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from my mom. "Take down that post immediately. You're embarrassing this family." Her tone was cold, demanding, but I wasn't going to give in this time. "No, Mom," I replied, my voice steady even though I could feel the storm building inside me. "You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick. When you took money that wasn't yours and used it to leave me out. That's the truth." The response was immediate, almost threatening. "If you don't take that post down and apologize publicly for your lies, you'll regret it." I didn't flinch. I wasn't going to back down. The truth was on my side. I had nothing left to lose. I could feel the tide shifting, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let them continue to control me, to manipulate me. I was going to stand my ground, and I wasn't going to apologize for speaking the truth. This was my fight now, and I was going to win it. The moment the message from my mother hit my phone, everything inside me froze. "Take down that post immediately. You're embarrassing this family." The cold, biting tone was the same one she always used when she was cornered, when she had no leg to stand on but still needed to feel like she had control. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen as I tried to calm myself. I knew this was just the beginning. They weren't going to let me walk away from this without a fight. And the worst part? They still thought they could manipulate me. I hadn't even taken a breath before I shot back my response. "No, Mom. You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick. When you took money that wasn't yours and used it to leave me out. That's the truth." I didn't even flinch as I sent it. This was it. This was the moment I had to stand up and stop being the person who took the blame, the person who always put her family first, even when they treated her like garbage. For so long, I had let them get away with it, but not anymore. Seconds after I sent the message, I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me. I had taken the first step, and I wasn't going to back down. But just as quickly, my phone buzzed again this time, from Chloe. The text was just as expected. "You've always been jealous of me, haven't you? You're trying to ruin everything now that you can't have it all. But guess what? You're too late. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone, and you'll have nothing." I read the message twice, but the more I read, the less it hurt. Chloe always had a way of making everything about her, of twisting things to fit her narrative. She couldn't even acknowledge that I was standing up for myself, that I wasn't just her punching bag anymore. I set my phone down, feeling a strange calmness wash over me. The old me would have been shaken by this, by Chloe's threats, by the harsh words from my mother. But this new me? I was done being the good daughter, the one who always tried to make everything okay. I had given them my time, my energy, my loyalty. And what had I gotten in return? Lies, betrayal, A family who thought I was too weak to stand up for myself. As I sat in my living room, the reality of the situation started to sink in. I had the proof. The bank statements, the photos, the emails, everything Grandma had given me was irrefutable evidence of the manipulation, of how my parents had taken advantage of me and my trust fund. And yet, I still couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. Was I doing the right thing? Was I really ready to expose everything? I glanced at the envelope Grandma had given me, the one filled with all the documents. She had known about all of this for years, had been watching quietly as my parents used me, as they favored Chloe and treated me like I didn't matter. But Grandma had always believed in me. She had always told me that I was strong, that I had a good heart. She had given me the tools to fight back when I was ready, and now I was ready. But what was I going to do with this power? Was I going to destroy my family in the process? I could feel the weight of that decision pressing down on me. I had spent so many years wanting their approval, wanting to be loved by them, but now I realized that I wasn't going to get that. Not from them! Not anymore. My parents had shown me exactly who they were, and now I had to decide if I was going to let them keep taking from me, or if I was going to take control of my life. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I looked at my phone. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, the unfairness of everything that had happened. It wasn't just the money. It was the emotional manipulation, the gaslighting, the way they had made me feel like I was crazy, like I was imagining things. But now I knew. I wasn't crazy. I had been the one who had been mistreated, and it was time to make them see that. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from my dad. The moment I saw his name, I knew it wasn't going to be good. I didn't want to answer it, but I also knew I had to. He would never let this go without a fight. "Tara," he said, his voice cold, "take down that post. You're making a scene. You're embarrassing this family." The words hit me like a slap in the face. He wasn't asking for an explanation, wasn't even acknowledging that they had lied to me. He just wanted me to back down, to act like none of this was a big deal. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. "No, Dad," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma, when you used my money to fund your vacation, when you excluded me from something that was supposed to be about family. That's not what a family does. And you don't get to make me feel guilty for telling the truth." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing, trying to gather himself. Then he spoke again, his voice lower, more menacing. "If you don't take that post down and apologize publicly for the lies you're spreading, you'll regret it. We've protected you for years, Tara. We've kept things from you. If you want to play this game, fine. But remember, you're not the only one who can tell stories." The threat was clear, but instead of feeling scared, I felt something else. A rush of clarity. I wasn't going to back down. "I don't need you to protect me anymore, Dad," I said, cutting him off before he could say anything else. "And I'm not taking down the post. The truth is out now. You can't hide from it." I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how this would end. But I did know one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I wasn't going to let them make me feel small, make me feel like I wasn't enough. I was done being the good daughter, the one who always did what she was told. This was my life, my story, and I wasn't going to let them dictate it any longer. I sat back down on the couch, my hands still shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from the realization that I had finally taken control. It was terrifying, but it was also freeing. I didn't know what would happen when they found out the truth, but I was ready for whatever came next. The storm was coming, and I wasn't running from it anymore. The morning after I posted my truth, everything felt surreal, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the only way forward was to jump. I couldn't stop thinking about how everything had spiraled out of control so quickly. One moment, I was sitting in my apartment, scrolling through social media, heart pounding as I hit post, and the next, my family was in full-blown damage control mode. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was from Chloe. Her message was as predictable as the sunrise. "You've always been jealous of me, haven't you? You think you can ruin everything with your lies, but you're too late. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone and you'll have nothing." I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. The nerve! Chloe had always been the one who got the attention, the one who was pampered, the one who was handed everything on a silver platter. But now, it was all crashing down around her, and she was too blind to see it. The words stung, but there was something deeper inside me now. Something stronger. I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong. I wasn't the villain here. They were. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. I didn't respond to Chloe, not yet anyway. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into the emotional manipulation game. The more I thought about her message, the more I realized how much I had let myself be manipulated over the years. My family had always acted like I was the one who was at fault, that I was the one causing trouble. They had turned everything around on me, always twisting the narrative, making me the scapegoat for their mistakes. But not anymore. This time, I was in control. This time, they couldn't silence me. I glanced over at the text from my mom that had come in a few minutes ago. "Take down that post now, Tara. You're embarrassing this family." The audacity of it. They had used my grandmother as a pawn in their scheme, made me feel like I was crazy for even questioning them, and now they were trying to make me feel guilty for telling the truth? I wasn't falling for it. My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't need to respond. My silence was my answer. I wasn't backing down. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was my father. I almost didn't want to answer. I could already hear the anger in his voice, the disapproval. But I knew I had to. I had to face them, no matter how much it hurt. "Tara, what are you doing?" His voice was low, almost dangerous. "You need to take that post down. You're causing chaos. You're embarrassing this family." The coldness in his voice sent a chill down my spine, but I stood my ground. "No, Dad," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick, when you took money that wasn't yours and used it to exclude me from the vacation. I'm not the one causing chaos here. You are." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing, but there was no response. It was almost like he didn't know how to handle me standing up for myself. For once, he couldn't manipulate me. For once, I wasn't the one apologizing for something I didn't do. "If you don't take that post down," he finally said, his voice colder than before, "you'll regret it. You have no idea what you're doing. Your mother and I have protected you from things you don't even know about. You'll regret this." I felt a wave of anger rise up inside me, but I didn't flinch. "What exactly have you been protecting me from, Dad?" "The truth?" I said, my voice sharp. "I'm not afraid of the truth anymore." His response was just as expected. He tried to guilt-trip me, tried to threaten me, but it was all empty. They had spent years making me feel like I was the problem, like I was the one who was ungrateful for everything they had done for me. But now I saw it for what it was. They had been using me, and I wasn't going to stand by and let them do it anymore. I ended the call, my hand trembling slightly, but I didn't let myself feel guilty. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. They were. I sat there, the weight of the conversation sinking in, and I realized something. I had let them control me for far too long. I had let them make me feel small, like I wasn't worthy of their love unless I did everything their way. But now I was done. I had the truth, and I was going to make sure they couldn't hide from it anymore. But it wasn't just about the lies anymore. It wasn't just about the money they had stolen from me, or the vacation they had excluded me from. It was about everything they had done to me over the years, everything they had taken from me. And it was about time I took it all back. I picked up my phone again, this time scrolling through the messages from my family. Chloe had tried to get to me again, but I was done responding to her childish threats. My mom had sent a few more messages, all demanding that I take down the post, all accusing me of causing chaos. But I didn't feel chaos. I felt clarity. I felt strength. I wasn't going to let them gaslight me anymore. I wasn't going to let them make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. I had spent years letting them define me, and now it was my turn to take control. I opened up my social media app, and there it was, my post, the one that had started it all. I looked at it one last time, my heart pounding. The flood of comments from family and friends, some supportive, some angry, some in disbelief, were all still pouring in. But there was no turning back now. The truth was out there. I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening, and neither could they. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't going to hide behind their lies. This was my story, my life, and I was going to live it on my terms. The storm that had been brewing for years was finally here, and I was ready for it. I wasn't going to be the one to apologize anymore. I wasn't going to back down. It was their turn to face the consequences of their actions. I sat there, staring at my phone, watching the flood of messages continue to pour in. Some were from family members I hadn't heard from in years, expressing shock and disbelief at my post. Others were from my parents, demanding that I take it down. They were relentless, every message more aggressive than the last. But what really got to me was the voicemail from my mom. I could hear the tears in her voice as she pleaded with me to take the post down. "Tara, please," she begged. "This is tearing the family apart. You're making a mistake. Don't do this. We're family. I'm your mother. You can't just throw all of this away." But as I listened to her words, I realized something deep within me. She wasn't asking me to fix anything. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking me to protect her, to protect the lie they had been living. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't willing to do that anymore. My heart pounded in my chest as I thought about the decision I had made. Was I really ready for what was coming? I had exposed the truth, and now there was no turning back. But I also knew that this was my only chance to break free from their grip. For years, I had been their safety net, their emotional punching bag, the one they always turned to when things went wrong. But it was never enough. No matter what I did, no matter how much I sacrificed, they never appreciated it. They never saw me. And that was the hardest part. I had given everything to them, all while they quietly took from me, manipulated me, and made me feel like I wasn't enough. I had let them define my worth for too long, but now I had a choice. I pulled myself together, wiped the tears that had started to form, and picked up the phone again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I called my Uncle Michael. He had been the only one who had stood by me when the rest of the family turned a blind eye. He had always known that something wasn't right, and he had helped me when I needed it the most. The moment he answered, I didn't waste any time. "Uncle Michael," the first said, my voice trembling but determined, "I need your help. It's all coming out now. They've lied to me, and I need to make sure they can't hurt me anymore." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I knew this day would come," he said quietly, his voice steady. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, Tara. You've been through so much. It's time you take back what's yours." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "I don't know what to do next. I have the proof, but I'm not sure where to go from here. What if I'm making a mistake?" He paused again, and when he spoke, his words were calm but filled with conviction. "This is the moment that will change everything. You're not making a mistake. You've been the one holding everything together for far too long. Now it's time for them to face the consequences of their actions. You have the power to take control, Tara. You've always had it." His words gave me the strength I needed. I wasn't going to be the one left holding the bag anymore. I wasn't going to be the one to clean up everyone else's mess. It was time for them to see that I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. I hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and looked out the window. The world outside was the same, bright, busy, alive, while my whole world had just turned upside down. I had never felt more alone, yet more powerful in my life. I had no idea what the next steps would look like, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to back down. No matter what came next, I was going to stand firm. A few hours later, I was sitting at my desk, going over the documents Grandma had given me. The truth was clear. My parents had been taking money from my trust fund for years, using it for Chloe's education, her wedding, and whatever else they needed to fund her lavish lifestyle. Meanwhile, I had been struggling to make ends meet, picking up extra shifts at the office, working overtime just to make sure I had enough. And when it came to big family decisions, I was always the one left out. I was always the one who had to pick up the pieces. And now, looking at the bank statements and the emails, I could see the cold, hard truth. They had been stealing from me, and they thought they could get away with it. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I couldn't. I couldn't live with the guilt of not doing something about it. I picked up my phone again and started typing. This time, the message was different. This time, I was the one in control. "You've taken enough from me," I wrote. "You've used me, lied to me, and stolen from me for years. But I'm done. The truth is out now, and I'm not going to let you walk away from this. I will make sure everyone knows what you've done. This is my life now, and I won't let you control it anymore." I paused, staring at the screen. This was it. This was the moment where everything would change. I had the proof. I had the power, and I wasn't afraid anymore. My finger hovered over the send button, my heart racing. Then, with a deep breath, I pressed it. The silence that followed felt like the calm before the storm. It wasn't over yet, not by a long shot, but I knew deep down that this was the beginning of something new. I had taken back control of my life, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally free. The days following my post felt like an endless storm, each moment more intense than the last. I had exposed the truth, and now everything was unraveling in a way I couldn't have prepared for. The messages didn't stop. My phone buzzed constantly, the screen lighting up with texts from family, friends, and even acquaintances who had caught wind of what was happening. Some were supportive, but most weren't. The angry, defensive messages from my parents and Chloe were the hardest to ignore. Each message, each attempt to convince me to take down the post, to stop embarrassing the family, only solidified my resolve. But it wasn't just the text messages that kept me on edge. It was the silence between the storms. The moments when I knew they were plotting, whispering behind closed doors, figuring out how to stop me. I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of dread and exhilaration. The fight I had started was only just beginning, but I had already crossed a line from which there was no turning back. My parents were furious, and that was the one thing I had expected. But what I hadn't anticipated was how far they were willing to go to make me back down. Their first tactic was guilt. The phone calls started coming in, my mom, sobbing, begging me to take down the post. "Tara, please," she cried. "This isn't you. You're tearing us apart." Her voice was thick with the kind of sorrow that usually got to me, but this time it didn't. This time it felt like a trap. I had been in this position before, on the receiving end of her guilt trips, feeling responsible for the family's happiness, constantly apologizing for things that weren't my fault. But not this time. I wasn't the one who had betrayed anyone. I wasn't the one who had manipulated the truth to get my way. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this isn't about us anymore. This is about the truth, and you know it. You lied to me. You used me." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could hear her breathing heavily, but she didn't respond. She didn't have anything to say to that, because it was true. They had lied to me, stolen from me, used my love and trust as a weapon against me. And now it was my turn to fight back. I wasn't going to let them gaslight me anymore. The worst part of it all was the way Chloe had been acting. She had always been the golden child, the one who got whatever she wanted, no matter how selfish or undeserving she was. And now that the truth was out, she wasn't even pretending to care about the consequences. Instead, she doubled down, playing the victim, making me feel like I was the one who had done something wrong. "You've always been jealous of me, haven't you?" her message read. "Why can't you just be happy for once instead of trying to ruin everything?" I read it over and over, each time the words stinging a little less, but the anger rising a little more. Jealous of her? No, I wasn't jealous of anything. I had never asked for her life, her privileges. What I had always wanted was fairness. I had wanted to be treated equally, but that was never going to happen in this family. Not as long as I let them dictate the terms. I spent hours going over the evidence again, the bank statements, the emails, the receipts Grandma had kept for years. Everything was laid out in front of me, each document more damning than the last. But even though I had the proof, I knew that wasn't enough. I couldn't just send them this information and hope it would end things. No, I had to make them see the truth. I had to make them understand that I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong, that it was them, all along, using me, taking advantage of my kindness and loyalty. But how could I make them see that? How could I get through to them when they were so deep in their lies? That's when it hit me. It wasn't just about exposing them anymore. It was about showing them that I was done being the one who was always expected to pick up the pieces, always expected to take the blame. I had been the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who always did what was expected of me. But it was time for them to see that they couldn't keep using me as their emotional punching bag. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions, whether they liked it or not. I sat down and started drafting an email to my Uncle Michael. He was the only one who had shown any concern when I first started noticing the patterns of favoritism, the quiet manipulation. He had always had my back, even when no one else did. And now, I needed him more than ever. He was the one person I could count on to help me take the next step. Uncle Michael, the first wrote, my fingers trembling as I typed. "One, need your help. This is bigger than I ever realized. I have the proof. Everything they've done, everything they've taken from me, it's all here. But I need your advice. I need to know what to do next." I stared at the message for a long time before hitting send. I felt both a sense of relief and dread. This was it. This was the beginning of everything changing. But even as I sat back in my chair, the weight of what I had just done began to sink in. I had just started a chain reaction, one that I knew would bring everything crashing down. I had made myself a target, and there was no going back. I didn't wait long for Uncle Michael's reply. When it came, it was exactly what I needed to hear. He told me that he had been gathering his own evidence, that he had been watching everything unfold from the sidelines. "Tara," he wrote, "I've been waiting for you to take action. We have everything we need now. They can't hide from this anymore." His words gave me the final push I needed. I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't the only one fighting. And for the first time, I realized that I had more than just the truth on my side. I had people who cared about me, who saw me for who I truly was, not just as the scapegoat of a broken family. As the days passed, things started to escalate. My parents and Chloe began to panic, sending more aggressive messages, threatening to take legal action, accusing me of ruining the family. But I didn't care anymore. The more they tried to silence me, the more determined I became. I wasn't going to let them bully me back into submission. This time, I was in control. This time, the truth would win. The pressure was mounting, and I could feel it building inside me, but there was something else, too. A sense of clarity. A sense that for the first time, I was finally free. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for everyone who had ever been silenced, who had ever been manipulated by those who were supposed to love them. This wasn't just my fight. It was the beginning of something bigger, something I couldn't even begin to imagine. But whatever it was, I was ready. The tension was palpable. The days that followed my post felt like an endless waiting game, a countdown to an inevitable confrontation. I could feel the storm brewing, Each message, each call, each attempt to force me back into the mold they had created for me. My phone had become a constant reminder of how far my family was willing to go to stop me from standing up for myself. The messages from my parents didn't stop. They were relentless, accusing me of betraying the family, trying to tear everything apart. But the hardest ones to read were the ones from Chloe. She didn't even try to disguise her anger. "You've always been jealous of me. You think you can destroy everything I've worked for? You'll regret this," she wrote. Every word from her hit me like a slap in the face, not because I felt guilty, but because it was so clear to me now how deeply she believed that her actions had no consequences. And I was done letting her think that. I spent most of the night tossing and turning, replaying everything in my mind, trying to come to terms with the fact that my family, my own parents, had manipulated me for years. The lies, the financial control, the favoritism, the emotional blackmail. It had been a slow burn, building over the years. But now it was out in the open, and there was no denying it. What really cut the deepest was the realization that my parents, the people I had trusted the most, had lied to me about Grandma. The woman who had always been there for me. The woman who had never judged me, never made me feel small, never played favorites. It hurt. It hurt more than I ever could have imagined. But as much as it hurt, something inside me was starting to change. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was determined to make sure they couldn't do this to me, or anyone else, ever again. I wasn't going to back down. I had the proof, and it was only a matter of time before the rest of the family knew the truth. It wasn't just about the cruise anymore, or about the money they had stolen from me. It was about everything, the years of manipulation, the lies, the gaslighting. I had spent my whole life trying to make my parents happy, trying to live up to their expectations, but they had never once cared about mine. They had used me, and now it was time to make them see that I wasn't going to let them get away with it anymore. I sat down and looked through the messages again. The family members who had reached out, some with support, some with anger, were all part of this tangled web. But there was one message I hadn't expected. My Uncle Michael, the one person who had always seemed to have my back. He had been the one who'd warned me years ago about my parents' manipulations, but I had never fully understood what he meant. Until now. He had sent me an email, and the words he wrote gave me chills. "Tara," it said, "I've been gathering evidence of everything they've done. I have everything you need to expose them, and I'm ready to back you up." The sense of relief I felt upon reading that was overwhelming. For the first time in this mess, I wasn't alone. Uncle Michael had been watching, waiting for me to finally see the truth. And now, together, we could do something about it. The next morning, I decided to take action. It was time to confront them. No more hiding, no more playing by their rules. I took a deep breath and started to write. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as I typed up an email to my parents. I wasn't sure if they would read it or just delete it, but I knew I had to say what needed to be said. I needed them to know that I wasn't backing down, that I wasn't going to let them continue to hurt me. "I know what you've done," I wrote. "I know about the money you've stolen from me, the lies you've told, and the way you've used me for your own benefit. I'm not going to sit by and let you get away with this anymore. The truth is out now, and I will make sure everyone knows what you've done." It felt good to write those words, to finally take control of the narrative, to stop letting them spin their lies and manipulate the situation. For years, I had been the one who kept the peace, who kept everything running smoothly, even when it meant sacrificing my own happiness. But that was over now. I wasn't the peacekeeper anymore. I was the one who was going to fight for myself. I hit send and sat back in my chair, waiting. I knew this wouldn't be easy. I knew they would fight back, that they would try to twist everything and make me the villain. But I also knew that I couldn't let fear stop me. "Not this time." The response from my mother came quickly. Her words were sharp, accusatory, filled with the same guilt she always tried to lay on me. How could you do this to us, Tara? After everything we've done for you, you're tearing this family apart. The message made my stomach turn, but I didn't flinch. I had heard it all before. The manipulation, the guilt trips, they didn't work on me anymore. I sat down and started drafting another message, this time to my extended family. I had been so careful to protect them from the truth for so long, but now I realized that they deserved to know. They deserved to see what my parents had done, to understand the truth behind all of the lies. I'm sorry to have to do this, but the truth can't stay hidden any longer, I typed. I want you to know what's really been going on in our family. This isn't easy for me, but it's time for you to hear the truth. I took a deep breath before hitting send. This was it, the moment of no return. There was no going back after this. I had exposed the lies, and now I had to face whatever came next. Would they turn on me? Would they try to discredit me? Or would they finally understand why I had done what I did? I didn't know, but I was ready to find out. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, texts, and emails. The backlash was fierce, especially from my parents and Chloe, but I could feel something shifting. People were starting to see the truth, starting to question the narrative my parents had built for so long. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about exposing the lies, about making sure they couldn't manipulate anyone else the way they had manipulated me. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, that there would be more battles ahead, but I also knew that I had already won. I had taken control. I had taken back my life, and no one could take that away from me. The aftermath of everything felt like an emotional roller coaster. I had always been the reliable one, the one who kept the peace, who stayed quiet in the face of unfairness, hoping things would get better. But after the storm of messages and calls from my parents, after the threats and guilt trips, I realized that I was no longer that person. I had finally made the decision to stand up for myself, to stop being the pawn in their twisted game of manipulation, and now the repercussions of that decision were hitting me hard. I didn't know how it would all unfold, but I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to face whatever came next. The first call I got after everything exploded was from my Uncle Michael. He was the only one who seemed to have known what I was going through, the only one who had seen through the facade my parents had put up for years. When he called, I expected more of the same advice, sympathy, maybe even a pep talk. But what he said took me by surprise. "Tara," he said, his voice low and measured, "I've been sitting on the sidelines for too long. I've watched them hurt you, and I've let it go because I didn't want to make things worse. But now they're going to have to answer for what they've done. You're not alone in this. You have me, and we're going to make sure they can't get away with it any longer." His words hit me like a thunderclap. I had always felt so alone in this fight, like I was the only one who could see the truth. But here was my uncle, telling me I wasn't alone. And for the first time, I felt a spark of hope ignite inside me. It wasn't just about me anymore. I wasn't the only one who had been wronged. My uncle had seen it too. And together, we were going to make sure my parents couldn't continue their lies. I spent the next few days going through everything with him. We gathered all the evidence, the documents, the bank statements, the emails. I had kept everything neatly filed away, not fully understanding why, but now I knew. The truth was in the details, and I had to make sure it all came to light. My uncle helped me sort through everything. We made copies of the important documents, and then we sat down to figure out what came next. What was our next move? What would happen when the rest of the family found out? Would they still side with my parents, or would they finally see the truth? I remember sitting at my kitchen table, looking over the papers, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I had no idea how this would turn out. I didn't know if I would lose everything: my family, my sense of security, my place in the world. But one thing I did know: I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. That evening, I made the call. I called a lawyer. It was time to make this official. I couldn't just sit around anymore, waiting for someone else to take action. It was time for me to take control of my future, to fight back, and to make sure my family could never hurt me again. The lawyer was kind but firm, walking me through the process of filing a formal complaint, outlining the steps to take legal action against my parents for what they had done. It wasn't going to be easy. The process would be long, painful, and filled with complications. But it was necessary. I couldn't let them continue to destroy me, and I couldn't let them think they could walk away from the mess they had created without consequences. The next few weeks were a blur. I kept my head down, focused on the legal process, trying to ignore the storm of messages still coming in from my parents. They continued to accuse me of being a traitor, of ruining everything. They sent texts, emails, even tried to show up at my apartment. I didn't respond. I couldn't! I had already said everything I needed to say. They were the ones who had wronged me, not the other way around. As the days turned into weeks, I felt something inside me start to shift. I was no longer the person who took the blame. I was no longer the person who bent over backwards to make everyone else happy. I was becoming someone else, someone stronger. The weight I had carried for so long, being the good daughter, the reliable one, the one who always made the sacrifices, was starting to lift. I wasn't just fighting for justice. I was fighting for myself. I was fighting to take back my power. Then, one day, I got a call from my Uncle Michael. He had some good news. The documents we had gathered, the proof of my parents' manipulation and theft, had made its way to the right hands. The lawyer had reviewed everything, and it was clear that my parents had been embezzling from my trust fund for years. Not only had they been taking money that wasn't theirs, but they had been hiding it in offshore accounts, making sure no one would find out. The truth was finally coming to light, and there was no way they could deny it now. The investigation had begun, and I had a front row seat to the consequences of their actions. I won't lie, there were moments of doubt. There were days when I felt like I was on the verge of breaking. There were moments when I questioned if I had done the right thing. But those moments passed. The more I learned, the more I saw the impact of my actions, the more I realized how much stronger I had become. The legal process was long and slow, but it was happening. The consequences were coming. The day the formal investigation began was the day I felt like I could finally breathe. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was constantly on edge, constantly wondering if I was doing the right thing. The truth had come to light, and there was no turning back. My parents had tried to destroy me, to manipulate me, to take advantage of my kindness. But now they had to face the consequences. The end result wasn't what I had expected. It wasn't an instant resolution, and it wasn't an easy win. My parents fought back, tried to discredit me, and tried to manipulate the truth. But the legal system wasn't on their side. The evidence was clear, and in the end, they were held accountable for their actions. But for me, the victory wasn't just in seeing them face consequences. The real victory was in what I had gained. I had gained my self-respect, my independence, and my strength. I had learned that I wasn't the problem. I had learned that I was worthy of respect, of love, and of fairness. And that, above all else, was worth more than anything else. As the months passed, I watched my life slowly start to rebuild itself. I started to take steps toward a future I had put on hold for far too long. I didn't need my family's approval anymore. I didn't need to rely on them to define my worth. I had found my own voice, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. In the end, my parents' downfall wasn't just the result of their own actions. It was also the result of me finding the courage to stand up for myself. I had faced my fear, confronted the lies, and walked away from the emotional shackles they had placed on me. And in doing so, I had finally found freedom. Imagine living a lie for years, only to wake up one day and realize it was all just manipulation. That was my reality. But let me tell you, standing up for myself was the hardest yet most freeing thing I've ever done. What do you think happened when I finally revealed the truth? Trust me, you're not going to believe how it all played out. If you're ready to hear the shocking truth, hit that like button and let's keep this conversation going. Your thoughts could change everything. The biggest lesson I learned through all of this is that you can't let others define your worth, no matter who they are. For years, I let my family manipulate and control me because I thought I had to. But in the end, standing up for myself, even when it meant breaking away from everything I knew, was the best decision I could have made. Don't be afraid to speak your truth and protect your peace. People will try to take advantage, but you have the power to change your story. Never let fear stop you from reclaiming your life.